One split second, one safety shortcut. That's all it took to turn routine workdays into the 6 most disturbing workplace tragedies of all time. These aren't just tragic accidents from dangerous jobs. They're reminders that corporate negligence can turn any job into a fatal situation. It was March 15th, 2017, when 34-year-old Adrian Blake received the call that would claim his life. A maintenance supervisor at Midwest Packaging Solutions in Detroit, Adrian was known throughout the plant for his meticulous attention to detail and unwavering work ethic. Despite being on his day off, he didn't hesitate when management called about the recurring conveyor jam that had plagued production for 3 days. Adrian had spent 8 years climbing the ranks at the facility, earning respect from colleagues who admired his willingness to tackle the toughest problems. The father of 2 young children had worked a grueling double shift just the day before, but his dedication to keeping the plant running smoothly overrode his exhaustion. His wife later recalled how he kissed her goodbye that morning, promising to be home by lunch. The conveyor system had been a persistent headache for weeks. Management pressure to meet a critical client deadline had created an atmosphere of urgency that prioritized speed over safety. The belt mechanism had a troubling history of violations, with emergency stop buttons frequently malfunctioning and safety guards removed to improve efficiency. These shortcuts would prove fatal. When Adrian arrived at the plant, he found the massive conveyor belt running at reduced speed while maintenance crews struggled with the jam. Against standard lockout-tagout procedures, he climbed onto the moving platform to get a closer look at the problem area. His loose work shirt, a violation he had overlooked in his haste, would become his death sentence. As Adrian leaned over the jam point, the fabric caught in the belt mechanism. The slow-moving conveyor began pulling him forward relentlessly. He reached desperately for the emergency stop button, only to discover it had been disconnected 3 days earlier and never repaired. With no way to halt the machinery, Adrian was dragged inexorably toward the nip point where the belt met the roller. The crushing force was immediate and devastating. His torso compressed between the belt and roller, causing massive internal trauma as bones shattered and organs ruptured. The mechanical advantage of the system generated thousands of pounds of pressure, severing major blood vessels and causing immediate cardiac arrest. Adrian lost consciousness within seconds as his chest cavity collapsed. Co-workers heard the machinery strain under the unexpected load and rushed to investigate. They found Adrian within 45 seconds, but the damage was already irreversible. The crushing injuries had caused traumatic asphyxia and massive internal bleeding that no medical intervention could address. Emergency responders arrived within 4 minutes, but Adrian was pronounced dead at the scene. The plant fell silent as news of the tragedy spread through the facility. OSHA investigators immediately shut down operations, discovering 23 safety violations, including disabled emergency systems and missing safety guards that had created the deadly conditions. The aftermath was swift and severe. Adrian's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit, resulting in a $2.3 million settlement. 3 plant supervisors faced criminal charges for their role in creating the unsafe working conditions. The incident sparked industry-wide reforms, requiring redundant emergency stop systems and mandatory daily safety equipment inspections. Adrian's widow channeled her grief into purpose, establishing a workplace safety foundation in his memory. The organization advocates for stricter enforcement of industrial safety regulations, ensuring that other families won't endure the devastating loss she experienced. His death became a catalyst for change, transforming a preventable tragedy into a lasting legacy of improved worker protection. The conveyor belt that claimed Adrian's life was eventually replaced with a system featuring multiple emergency stops and comprehensive safety guards. But the cost of these improvements paled in comparison to the price of a life lost to corporate negligence. It was August 22nd, 2018, when 28-year-old Chelsea Vaughn walked into what would become her final workday at Gulf Coast Refining in Houston. The MIT graduate had joined the petrochemical facility just 18 months earlier, determined to prove herself in the male-dominated industry. Her colleagues respected her thorough approach to safety protocols and dedication to double-checking equipment readings. Chelsea's assignment that morning involved inspecting a hydrogen sulfide storage tank that had been showing irregular pressure readings for several weeks. As a chemical engineer, She understood the deadly nature of the gas she worked with daily. Hydrogen sulfide was known as the silent killer of industrial facilities, capable of dropping a person in seconds at high concentrations. Management had repeatedly delayed the inspection due to production quotas, despite Chelsea's growing concerns about the deteriorating tank seals. Budget cuts had eliminated backup personnel during hazardous inspections, leaving her to perform the dangerous task alone. She had expressed reservations to her supervisor that morning, but was told no additional staff was available. The storage tank had developed a hairline crack that had been slowly leaking hydrogen sulfide gas throughout the night. The invisible, heavier-than-air gas had been accumulating in the lower sections of the inspection area, creating a death trap that Chelsea couldn't detect without proper atmospheric testing. Chelsea entered the tank inspection area, wearing standard protective equipment, including a personal gas monitor. As she descended the ladder into the inspection pit, her monitor began alarming at 50 parts per million. Assuming it was a calibration error, she continued downward toward the tank's base level. At the bottom of the inspection pit, hydrogen sulfide concentrations had reached 300 parts per million, well above the immediately dangerous threshold. The toxic gas attacked her nervous system within seconds, causing rapid paralysis of her respiratory muscles and preventing her from calling for help or climbing back to safety. Chelsea collapsed within 15 seconds of reaching the high concentration zone. The hydrogen sulfide caused immediate respiratory paralysis and cardiac arrhythmia as it interfered with cellular oxygen utilization. Her body's natural reflexes failed as the gas overwhelmed her system's ability to process oxygen. Her gas monitor's alarm signal reached the control room, alerting operators to the emergency. Rescue personnel donned hazmat suits and reached the inspection area within 3 minutes, but Chelsea had already succumbed to acute hydrogen sulfide poisoning. The toxic gas had caused complete respiratory failure and cardiac arrest. Emergency responders attempted resuscitation procedures, but the damage was irreversible. Chelsea was pronounced dead at the scene, with the autopsy revealing acute hydrogen sulfide toxicity and respiratory failure as the cause of death. The refinery faced immediate shutdown and investigation. OSHA inspectors discovered systemic safety failures that resulted in $4.8 million in fines. The facility was forced to implement comprehensive atmospheric monitoring systems throughout all confined spaces. Chelsea's death sparked congressional hearings on chemical plant safety, leading to stricter federal regulations requiring continuous atmospheric monitoring in confined spaces. Her parents established an engineering scholarship fund at MIT focused on industrial safety research. The incident became a landmark case study in chemical engineering programs nationwide, highlighting the critical importance of atmospheric testing before confined space entry. Her thorough approach to safety became the foundation for new industry standards, protecting countless workers from similar tragedies. It was November 8, 2016, when 41-year-old Travis Monroe climbed into the operator's cabin of Tower Crane 7 for what would be his final shift. A veteran crane operator with 15 years of experience, Travis was respected throughout the Miami construction site for his steady hands and unwavering commitment to safety protocols. His colleagues often sought his advice on complex lifts, knowing his cautious approach had prevented countless accidents. Travis was working on the 23rd floor of a luxury condominium project that had been pushing aggressive completion schedules due to investor pressure. The father of 3 had built his reputation on never cutting corners, but recent management decisions were testing his patience. Extended work hours and deferred maintenance had become the norm as deadlines loomed. For weeks, Travis had been reporting troubling signs from his tower crane. Unusual vibrations during slewing operations and grinding sounds from the main structural components had prompted multiple maintenance requests. Each time, supervisors promised inspections that never materialized, citing schedule pressures and budget constraints that prioritized production over safety. The morning brought gusty winds, reaching 28 miles per hour, within operational limits, but adding stress to the already compromised crane structure. Travis had expressed concerns about the combination of high winds and the crane's deteriorating condition, but work continued as the project raced toward its deadline. As Travis prepared to lift a 4-ton concrete beam to the 25th floor, the crane's main mast was reaching its breaking point. Months of deferred maintenance had allowed metal fatigue to progress unchecked through critical structural components. The additional stress from wind loads created perfect conditions for catastrophic failure. The failure began as a hairline crack in the main mast that rapidly propagated under load. Within seconds, the crack became a complete fracture, causing the entire upper structure to lose its structural integrity. The massive tower began tilting backward toward the building as gravity took control. Travis found himself trapped in the operator's cabin as the crane collapsed. The safety systems designed to protect operators were useless against the catastrophic structural failure. The cabin remained attached to the collapsing mast as the entire assembly fell toward the building. The crane's upper section struck the 18th floor with tremendous force. The impact crushed the operator's cabin like an aluminum can, with Travis inside experiencing immediate fatal trauma. The cabin's steel frame deformed around him, causing severe head injuries and crushing chest wounds that ended his life instantly. The collapsed crane section came to rest, wedged between concrete floors, with the destroyed cabin barely recognizable among the twisted metal. Emergency crews arrived within minutes, but required specialized cutting equipment to extract Travis's body, a process that took 3 hours. The construction company faced immediate criminal negligence charges as investigators uncovered a pattern of ignored safety warnings. OSHA imposed $6.2 million in penalties, citing willful violations that directly contributed to Travis's death. The tragedy sparked industry-wide reforms, requiring mandatory monthly crane inspections and real-time structural monitoring systems. Travis's family received a $3.8 million settlement and became vocal advocates for stricter crane safety regulations. New federal requirements emerged, mandating advanced structural health monitoring on all cranes operating above 150 feet. Travis's legacy became the foundation for technologies that would prevent similar failures and protect future crane operators. It was June 14, 2019, when 29-year-old Natalie Winters arrived at the Phoenix power generation plant for what would become her final shift. A skilled electrical technician with 6 years of experience in high-voltage systems, Natalie was known throughout the facility for her methodical approach and comprehensive understanding of electrical safety protocols. Her colleagues respected her technical expertise and often consulted her on complex electrical problems. Natalie had built her career on precision and caution, understanding that working with 13,800-volt systems left no room for error. The dedicated professional had earned her reputation through countless hours of studying electrical codes and safety procedures, making her one of the most trusted technicians at the facility. Her assignment that day involved performing routine maintenance on a critical switchgear system that supplied power to essential plant operations. Recent budget cuts had eliminated the requirement for a second technician to be present during high-voltage work, leaving Natalie to perform the dangerous task alone. The switchgear had a troubling history of insulation problems, with several near-miss incidents reported over the previous year. Comprehensive repairs had been repeatedly deferred due to cost concerns, creating an increasingly dangerous situation that management chose to ignore in favor of maintaining production schedules. Natalie followed her standard lockout-tagout procedures meticulously, ensuring all energy sources were properly isolated before beginning work. However, unknown to her, a backup power system had created an unexpected energized condition in what should have been a completely dead circuit. As Natalie opened the switchgear panel to replace a faulty relay, the unexpected electrical energy created a massive arc flash explosion. The plasma reached temperatures exceeding 35,000 degrees Fahrenheit, instantly vaporizing copper conductors and creating a ball of superheated gases that engulfed her entire body. The electrical current caused immediate cardiac arrest as it disrupted her heart's natural rhythm. Simultaneously, the intense heat caused severe burns over 80% of her body within milliseconds. Her flame-resistant clothing provided minimal protection against the extreme temperatures of the arc flash event. The explosion's pressure wave threw Natalie backward 8 feet, causing additional trauma when she struck a concrete wall. The combination of electrical shock, thermal burns, and blunt force trauma created multiple life-threatening injuries that overwhelmed her body's ability to survive. Natalie lost consciousness immediately from the electrical shock and thermal trauma. The massive electrical current had disrupted her nervous system, while the extreme heat caused rapid tissue destruction. Death occurred within 2 minutes from the combined effects of cardiac arrest and severe thermal injuries. Emergency responders arrived within 5 minutes, but Natalie was already deceased. The arc flash had caused such severe injuries that resuscitation attempts were futile from the moment of impact. The power plant was immediately shut down as investigators examined the electrical safety failures. OSHA inspectors discovered 31 safety violations, including inadequate electrical isolation procedures and failure to properly verify energy sources were de-energized. Natalie's death prompted sweeping changes in electrical safety standards. New regulations required a comprehensive arc flash hazard analysis and specialized protective equipment for all electrical work above 480 volts. It was September 3, 2015, when 26-year-old Cole Harrington arrived at the agricultural processing facility in Kansas City for what would become his final day of work. A dedicated grain elevator operator with 4 years of experience, Cole was known throughout the facility for his willingness to tackle difficult maintenance tasks and his strong work ethic. His colleagues respected his determination to solve problems that others might avoid. Cole had grown up on a farm and understood the seasonal pressures of agricultural work. The young man took pride in keeping the grain flowing smoothly through the facility, especially during the critical harvest season when delays could cost farmers thousands of dollars. His supervisor often relied on Cole's mechanical aptitude and fearless approach to challenging repairs. That morning, Cole was assigned to clear a stubborn blockage in a 60-foot-tall corn storage silo that had been causing flow problems for several days. The facility had a poor safety record regarding confined space entry, with minimal training provided on grain entrapment hazards and inadequate safety equipment available for workers. The agricultural processing plant routinely ignored standard safety protocols to save time and labor costs. Procedures requiring safety harnesses and attendance during silo entry were frequently bypassed, creating dangerous conditions that management chose to overlook in favor of maintaining production schedules. Cole's supervisor had emphasized the urgency of clearing the blockage due to harvest season demands, creating pressure to complete the task quickly rather than safely. The facility's culture prioritized speed over safety, with workers encouraged to take shortcuts that would prove deadly. Cole entered the silo through the top access hatch and began walking across what appeared to be a solid grain surface toward the problem area. Unknown to him, the corn had formed a dangerous bridge over a void created by the grain flow below, creating an invisible trap that would collapse under his weight. The grain surface suddenly gave way beneath Cole's feet, creating a funnel effect that pulled him down into the flowing corn like quicksand. The phenomenon, known as grain entrapment, occurs when flowing grain creates suction forces that can trap and bury a person within seconds. As Cole struggled to escape, his movements caused more grain to flow around him, creating additional suction that pulled him deeper into the massive corn kernels. Within 20 seconds, he was buried up to his chest in flowing grain, with the immense weight making it impossible to breathe normally or call for help. The grain continued to flow around Cole's body, reaching his neck within another 10 seconds as the funnel effect intensified. Within 45 seconds total, Cole was completely submerged in the flowing grain mass. The corn kernels filled his mouth and nose, while the immense pressure compressed his rib cage, causing death by suffocation and compression asphyxia. A co-worker discovered Cole was missing after 30 minutes and immediately alerted emergency crews. Rescue personnel faced the dangerous challenge of excavating his body without causing further grain collapse, requiring 6 hours of careful work to safely remove the corn. The agricultural facility faced immediate investigation and received $890,000 in OSHA penalties. The agency required the implementation of comprehensive confined space entry procedures and mandatory safety equipment for all grain bin work. Cole's death led to new federal regulations requiring grain bin entry permits and specialized rescue equipment at agricultural facilities. His family's wrongful death lawsuit resulted in a $1.7 million settlement and sparked industry-wide safety reforms that transformed agricultural workplace safety standards nationwide. It was January 19, 2017, when 32-year-old Jillian Marks arrived at the Pittsburgh steel manufacturing plant for what would become her final shift. An experienced metallurgical engineer with 9 years in steel production, Jillian was respected throughout the facility for her technical expertise and unwavering commitment to quality control. Her colleagues valued her analytical mind and thorough approach to solving complex production problems. Jillian had built her career on understanding the intricate processes of steel manufacturing. The dedicated professional took pride in maintaining the highest safety and quality standards, often staying late to ensure production specifications were met. Her attention to detail had prevented numerous costly mistakes over the years. That morning, Jillian was overseeing the operation of a blast furnace, producing molten steel at temperatures exceeding 2,800 degrees Fahrenheit. Recent cost-cutting measures had reduced maintenance staff and extended equipment service intervals, creating conditions that would prove catastrophic. Management pressure to maintain production schedules had created a dangerous environment. Throughout the morning shift, Jillian had noticed irregularities in furnace pressure readings that concerned her deeply. The blast furnace's cooling system had been operating at reduced capacity for 3 weeks due to a malfunctioning pump that management refused to repair due to budget constraints. The furnace's refractory lining had been deteriorating for months, with hairline cracks developing in the protective barrier that contained the molten steel. These warning signs had been documented, but ignored as production demands took priority over necessary maintenance and safety upgrades. As Jillian monitored the furnace operations from her position 15 feet away, a catastrophic failure in the refractory lining caused molten steel to breach the containment vessel, creating a massive explosion of superheated metal and toxic gases that erupted with tremendous force. The explosion sent a spray of molten steel droplets at nearly 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit directly toward Jillian's position. The superheated metal particles struck her body instantly, causing immediate severe burns over 70% of her skin surface. The extreme temperatures caused rapid tissue destruction and immediate shock. Simultaneously, toxic gases released from the molten metal explosion caused immediate respiratory distress and chemical burns to her lungs. The combination of thermal trauma and toxic gas inhalation created multiple life-threatening conditions that overwhelmed her body's ability to survive. Jillian collapsed within 30 seconds of the explosion as her circulatory system went into shock from the massive thermal injuries. The molten metal had caused fourth-degree burns that destroyed skin, muscle, and bone tissue on contact. Her respiratory system failed as toxic gases damaged her lungs. Death occurred within 3 minutes from the combined effects of severe thermal burns, toxic gas inhalation, and circulatory shock. The extreme nature of her injuries made survival impossible despite her proximity to the plant's medical facilities. Emergency responders were unable to approach Jillian's location for 20 minutes due to continued molten metal discharge and dangerous gas emissions. When they finally reached her, she was pronounced dead at the scene. The steel plant was immediately shut down indefinitely as investigators examined the systemic failures. OSHA imposed $7.3 million in penalties, and criminal charges were filed against plant management for willful negligence. Jillian's death prompted new federal regulations requiring enhanced blast furnace monitoring systems and improved emergency response procedures. If these shocking workplace tragedies left you stunned, click the next video now to dive deeper into the world's most disturbing industrial accidents ever recorded.